I recognize the member from Saanich South.
Thank you very much. Well, I didn't think this day was going to come. I've been waiting for 1 full year for the report from the Agricultural Land Commission Chair to be released, and as promised, it came with legislation that we're going to be debating in here at the end of a session. The report that the Commissioner released was about 100 pages long, very, very in-depth, very thorough, and my personal feeling is it should have been released a year ago to the public and to the stakeholders. It reflected the consultation that took place with over 300 people and 60 stakeholder groups. And basically that group of people, those stakeholders, including myself, were left in the lurch for 1 full year, wondering when the minister was going to release this report. It went through 3 different ministers in the Ministry of Agriculture. It waited while the budget was decreased. And as we waited, more land was excluded from the Agricultural Land Reserve. More construction fill was dumped on farmland. Farms were ruined. Farmland was turned into wasteland. 1 full year. The chair of the Agricultural Land Commission put a lot of effort into this, and I think I'd like to say on record that I think it's very insulting that that report was held back for over a year. There's a lot of people in this province who believe very, very strongly in agriculture. It's the backbone of our province, and to hold a report with such critical information when we all could have been working together for over a year is unacceptable. But that being said, I'm relieved that the report is released. The legislation that comes with it, I've been reading the messaging coming from the other side of the House, and it's hardly a day to celebrate. There's been a baby step made. We see $600,000 being committed right now to the Agricultural Land Commission, when the minister and I both know that just to clear the backlog of 10 years of deterioration with the Agricultural Land Commission support would take $2 million. This government believes that agriculture is such little importance that they only committed $600,000. So they're not actually interested in fixing the problem, because we know that would cost $2 million. 10 years of eating away at the Agricultural Land Reserve and the Commission, and we get $600,000. $600,000 committed. Maybe next year. We haven't seen a commitment for the $1 million for the next budget year. We haven't seen that. We haven't seen that commitment. But I know there's $600,000 committed. Just to address the deficit with the mapping the mapping infrastructure, the GIS system, and getting those ducks in a row, will probably take the whole $600,000. That's an expensive process. It could have been dealt with over the years, but instead now we are going to rush into it. I know that there's some conversation around cost sharing. When I went out with the Land Commission enforcement agents to take a look for myself at the fill dumping in the Lower Mainland, I wondered that if the current minister, the minister before him, or the minister before him over the last 2 years, had actually gone out with the enforcement officers and gone for a ride around the Lower Mainland, where the enforcement officers could point out the critical parts where fill dumping is out of control. I mentioned in this House that I thought fill dumping on farmland was out of control in this province. And on the local radio station here in Victoria, in CFAX, the minister actually said he's never heard that it's out of control. So that makes me curious on the ALR. Is that right? The minister's now trying to converse with me in the House. He's saying that the ALC doesn't believe that fill dumping is out of control. And I know that the ALC is watching this debate right now, so I'm glad he got that on record in the House, that he doesn't believe fill dumping on the ALR is out of control, because it's absolutely out of control. Absolutely. If the minister wanted to solve that problem in this House with his legislation, he would have called for a moratorium on fill dumping until we realize how much damage has been done over the last 10 years. And in fact, the minister would have said taken a look at all of the applications for fill dumping that were approved. He would have taken a look at the farmland that was involved, and he would have taken a look to see if these farms who had approved dumping on them and unapproved dumping on them were actually more viable 10 years later. That's what should be happening. That's what the minister should have been fighting for, because right now we are seeing valuable farmland be ruined by construction fill because there's no provincial fill dumping plan in this province. So $600,000 committed now. We've got some rushed legislation. The minister continued to say that he didn't want to release a report without legislation. Well, I don't understand what would have been the problem, except for the fact that we now can't discuss the report for the last year. We don't have 12 months to discuss the recommendations that the chair put forward. We now have to just swallow what the ministers decided is good enough for the Agricultural Land Commission. One of the recommendations that is absolutely shocking to me is that the minister decided we didn't need to go from a regional commission panel system with the ALC. We didn't need to change that, even though 50% of stakeholders said they wanted to go back down to one single panel, provincial panel with Agricultural Land Commission. That was effective back when the New Democrats were running the show, and as soon as the Liberal government came in, they disbanded that provincial ALC panel and decided that 6 regional panels of 3 commissioners were going to be more effective. The proof is in the pudding. We all know, anyone who's in agriculture, has been involved in agriculture as an advocate, will know that that doesn't work. Having panels around the province doesn't work. And it's not my opinion. I mean, I have that opinion as well, but it's not just my opinion. 50%, that would be 150 people out of 300 believed that we needed to go back to a I don't know, the minister's wondering which, it's like he didn't read the report. Which half? So 50%. So I could go through and I'll just remind the minister which stakeholders weighed in on this. We've got the BC Agriculture Council, the BC Cattlemen's Association, the BC Food Processors Association. I don't know if any of these are starting to ring a bell, but these would have been the people that would have said, no, we don't believe that regional panels are actually effective. In fact, they're damaging the ALR. And the chair of the Agricultural Commission himself, he laid it out pretty strong in his recommendations. And I'll just read to you, in case you didn't catch it, what the chair said. Let's see here. The minister's making comments, but I can't actually hear what he's saying. Of the groups that discussed the governance issue with the ALC, 50% supported the return to a single provincial panel, 23% supported the existing regional panels, 7% supported the combination of the 2 options, and 20% supported a review of the panel structure. That, to me, sounds like there might be a problem with the regional panel system, and I can tell you what it might be because the chair laid it right out. He said, pros and cons of a regional 3-member panel system. He lists, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 cons and 2 pros. So the pros, the applicants support decision-making closer to home. The commissioners are knowledgeable about their regional and local issues. I understand that, because if you are living in the same area where you're making decisions on exclusions in the ALR, you would be fairly knowledgeable about that area. But the cons that were involved, which I think are extremely interesting, because if this government claims they want more accountability and transparency, they should have been reading what the cons were of having these panels. Decision-making too close to local governments and people affected by decisions. So making decisions around things you might be too close to. Lack of provincial focus on the ALR program. Do not provide breadth of experience, knowledge, or opinion needed to examine the host of issues that need to be considered and debated. Increased potential for commissioners to be placed in situations of apprehension at bias of potential conflict of interest. Recruitment is often difficult, and some important agricultural areas are not represented. 19 members of the commission are unwieldy, function more as a permitting agency rather than an administrational tribunal, inconsistent approach to considering applications and administering ALC and provincial policy. Personal bias can prevail with such a small decision-making body. Chair lacks the statutory authority to intervene on a matter before a panel. I know that that's changed now. The chair does have authority, but he still has to deal with all of these 6 panels. Considerable staff resources are needed to administer panels rather than more thorough, in-depth review of the applications and issues, and they are costly to operate. Given that the Agricultural Land Commission is underfunded, it's the Auditor General who stated it was so underfunded it couldn't fulfill its mandate. You would think that one of the points that the chair makes about it being too costly to operate this way would have made an impression on the minister, because we don't have enough money to fulfill the job now. So if there's a way to make cost savings that is even apparently more effective at doing the job, you would do that. There is a recommendation of a 7-member commission, and then he goes through the pros and cons with that, and he also goes to the pros and cons of a single 10-member commission, which is in fact probably where he would like to see us going. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 pros regarding a 10-member board. I don't know if, so at this point, I'm not quite sure how the minister would have decided to leave things as they were. It doesn't make sense. I think the minister and I both know it doesn't make sense. So I am still trying to figure that out. I don't know if the minister's going to be discussing that with me or during third reading, but something is a little bit fishy to me. When over 50% of people who registered their opinions about the Agricultural Land Commission and its governance structure said that the regional panel system doesn't work, it seems to me that that's a message. And then the chair, the very well-respected chair of the Agricultural Land Commission, Richard Bullock, he as well recommended that we go down to a 7 or 10 single-member commission. The minister just yelled across the room to me that the chair actually supports the regional system. I'm not sure how that could be unless the minister waited so long to release this report that this report is now outdated. But I don't think so. He wants me to give the chair a call and discuss it with him. Well, anyway, so the government's getting upset on the other side. They're getting a little bit upset because I'm pointing out some glaring inconsistencies with the way that the minister is producing legislation around a report that we have been waiting for 12 months to receive from the well-respected chair of the Agricultural Land Commission. The minister wants me to call the chair. I don't know if I'm supposed to do this right now, or maybe he can give you a call. Maybe the chair can give the minister a call and explain why a regional system doesn't work. Maybe he could do that. So the minister, he has also stated that the changes made, and I believe there are some good changes. This is not one of them. The regional panel system is not a good change. In fact, I think it deteriorates the ALR, but there are some good changes. It's a baby step towards strengthening agriculture in the province. It's certainly not the solution. We haven't solved anything here, but we're getting there. But we have to remember that for 10 years, the BC Liberal government has cut the budget for agriculture. The BC Liberal government has not supported agriculture in this province. So to believe that $600,000 is the fix, $600,000 commitment right now, who knows when the budget comes along? Who knows what excuses there will be when that $1 million commitment actually has to come into play. But we can see from the messaging around this report that this is supposed to lead us to believe that the agricultural land reserve is stronger than ever. That's what it's supposed to lead us to believe. But it's funny because the day after this report was released, another report was released, and it was the report on the budget, 212 consultations. This report, in fact, on page 47, in case the minister wants to look it up, investing in northern development. There's a couple points here around the agricultural land reserve. So we are now, according to the minister and what has happened with the ALC, we are the ALR is stronger than ever. But you can see on point 16, there is a recommendation to remove an appropriate amount of land from the agricultural land reserve so that Fort Nelson can expand its residential land base to accommodate the growth pressures and demands of developing gas exploration. So we've got a member clapping for that, which is, very appropriate. So we are now stating, and this is really where the heart of the whole problem is for the last 10 years. This is why we have a problem with the agricultural land reserve and this government, because the highest and best use for agricultural land in the eyes of the BC Liberals is development. That's how the Liberals value agricultural land. Highest and best use, anything but agriculture. Anything but agriculture. That makes them up. That upsets the government. That upsets the government when I say things like that, because they know it's true. And they know the people in this province, I've got some. They want to talk about the agricultural land reserve. So let's see. Let's see what we've got here. Between April 1st and March 31st, 2002 to 2005. I think who was in government then? I think it was the BC Liberals. The ALC approved the exclusion of 70% of hectares of ALR land that were proposed for exclusion. The regions with the highest rates of ALR exclusions were Vancouver Island at 89.1%, the Kootenays at 83.6%, the Okanagan at 82.5%. Now, this is where the trickery begins. This is where the Liberal trickery begins. They say that we don't have any, it's stayed consistent. The ALR's been consistent. But consistency to the BC Liberals means that they've got their developments going. They've excluded land from the ALR, but hey, wait a minute. They've actually included land. So hey, don't pick on us. We like the ALR. Well, that's not right, because the land that's been included is in the north, which has low growing capacity. So that's the trickery of the BC Liberals. That's how they trick us. Nobody believes that story anymore, and that's why most of this province, the minister's trying to lap up some affection over there for his big commitment to the Agricultural Land Commission. Looks very upsetting for the government. It's very, very upsetting. These guys, I tell you. Anyway, so this government, and in the eyes of so many, including one of the people who was around right from the beginning, who knew what it meant, who knew what the agricultural land reserve meant, and that's Harold Steves. He knew what it meant because he was there right at the beginning. And you know what he's saying about these changes? He's saying they're baby steps. It's a step in the right direction, and I agree. Still a long way to go, but here it comes, listening. Nothing in the measures announced stops or prevents speculators from buying farmland in places like Delta and waiting for the right offer from the port to buy up some more agricultural land for development. Why? Let's review. Highest and best use is not farming with the BC Liberals, actually. The changes also give the ALC chair a more prominent role overseeing regional panels that decides on changes to the reserve, and that's good. Decisions of those panels can now be appealed to the chair. But the province did not follow Richard Bullock's recommendations to create a single provincial panel with representatives from each region to decide on ALR changes. Steve said a provincial panel would have been less vulnerable to lobbying at the local level. That's right, and that's the whole point. What is the highest and best use for farmland in BC? The only reason to keep a regional panel is so that the highest and best use can stay as development in British Columbia. That's what it is.
You do a lot of pointing.
This is a very, very difficult topic in here because there's people that really believe in the ALR and people that don't. And so that's just a little taste of what I've got to say on second reading of this report, but I'll have much more to say when the legislation comes in for third reading. So I'm going to take my seat, and the government on the other side of the House can breathe and try and calm down a little after hearing such devastating news from this side of the House.